right. We're good? Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to introduce myself. My name is Chirag Parikh. I'm the Executive Secretary of the National Space Council here in the United States. Vice President Kamala Harris is the chair of the National Space Council, and we're so honored to have members of the Space Council from U.S. departments and agencies, and of course, all of our African allies and partners from across the Union here today. I'll be the master of ceremonies today. I know we're running a little bit behind schedule, so I will speed up these introductory remarks. Our hope is for this forum to provide an opportunity to leverage outer space to meet the goals, the shared goals of our U.S.-Africa relationships here on Earth. Today's forum includes a range of distinguished speakers and will also feature robust discussions on the use of space to support the sustainable development goals and capacity building, as well as the role of the private sector in supporting the U.S.-Africa partnership. So, without further ado, it is my honor to introduce to you President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, to provide the introductory remarks. President.
NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen in your different capacities, Halibu Shaba from Nigeria, Minister representing the President of Nigeria, senior government officials. It is with great pleasure that I join you today for the US-Africa Space Forum. I would like to begin by congratulating NASA for the successful Artemis 1 mission under the tremendous leadership of Administrator Bill Nelson. Orion's return to Earth means that we are a step closer to sending astronauts back to the moon a half a century after Apollo 17. This marks a historic moment in global space cooperation and exploration. Rwanda should not be more pleased could not be more pleased to become part of this journey by joining the Artemis Accords. Space-based technology is becoming an increasingly powerful tool for addressing global challenges such as agricultural productivity and climate change. This is why the Rwanda Space Agency was established 2 years ago with plans to establish a space center of excellence for research and development. Rwanda is happy to be working with industry partners from the United States, such as eSpace, Globalstar, and Atlas Space Operations. eSpace has opened an office in Kigali, Rwanda, and will be offering their innovative satellite-based Internet of Things technology in Rwanda. We are happy to be hosting a Globalstar satellite ground station and Atlas antenna in Rwanda will contribute to lunar mission control. As we shoot for the stars, literally and figuratively, let us ensure that the exploration of outer space benefits all of mankind, humankind for generations to come. Once again, Senator Nelson, I thank you for the invitation to join this event today, as well as for your long friendship with Rwanda and Africa. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, President Kagame, for your opening remarks. Very excited to partner with you, and great the fact that you're able to also bring in the element of our industry-to-industry cooperation as part of the broader space ecosystem. And yes, and of course, Administrator Nelson, to everybody, of course, congratulations on such a successful Artemis mission and the splashdown there as well. Let's see. I am filibustering now, I think, so. Just a second? Okay. In the meantime, I do want to recognize a very special person in this audience who has served as an inspiration across multiple generations. Sorry, I'm gonna bother you here, but across multiple generations. She's not speaking today, but across multiple generations, across multiple administrations, and most importantly, across multiple continents. Dr. Mae Jemison, first African-American female astronaut in the world, is kind enough to have joined us. So, Dr. Jemison. And we're really, really honored to have you there, here. There's a lot of different partnerships. I think what, you know, as part of the work that we have with the Astronaut Corps particularly, one of the things is the work that the astronauts do, not just while they're up in space, but more importantly, when they return to Earth. When they see the overview effect, as many people talk about the value, how fragile Earth is, how we're all one nation under, you know, the darkness of space, and to be able to see how important it is to take care of our people and the fragility of our planet as well. So thank you for all the efforts that you've done to be able to continue that great work here back on Earth. So I do believe. All right, so it is my honor now to present to you President Paul Biya, President of Cameroon. So he is making his way up here right now, so thank you.
Je suis en vedette. Ici. C'est qui tous ces gens qui sont là? Pourquoi je n'ai pas demandé ça? Est-ce qu'il y a des gens importants là?
Le monsieur vous a introduit. Il y avait un monsieur debout qui vous a introduit.
Je dois parler maintenant.
Vous restez assis, parlez assis.
Hein?
Vous pouvez parler assis, étant assis.
Ici?
Oui.
Pourquoi? DC. Exit.
Your Excellencies, Mr. President, and dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be able to speak with you this morning. Here we are going to talk about a critically important topic for the future of our continent. Most importantly, it's critical to the development of our continent. We must all bear in mind a key fact. Right now, even as I speak to you this morning, young Africans and youth around the world are able to watch this talk. And those young people are able to get an idea of what's happening and what's being said thousands of kilometers away from where they are. That shows us one of the ways in which we can use commercial space, which is the theme that brings us here today. By optimizing the way we use the opportunities of space through its satellite network, communications on the African continent and between the African continent and other continents have developed and improved over the years. We are pleased with the ways in which our countries are able to take advantage of these new communication possibilities. We are seizing unprecedented economic and development opportunities. I have personally observed that Africa is a great place to deploy and use new communication and information technologies. These kinds of technologies depend on putting new satellites into orbit. These kinds of advances are being used in various fundamental industries that are crucial to our future economic development. And yet, the development needs relating to space development in Africa are many and pressing. Right now, the capacities of the countries on the continent that have a satellite do not enable adequate and exhaustive coverage of the needs of our population and even the needs of our governments. This is why I think that heading out into space, conquering space, is an imperative and a necessity for us. This is why partnering with countries that already have made progress in this area is crucial. This is why I'm so pleased that we're able to talk about this issue here today. The United States is a pioneer in space exploration. And the United States is a leader in launching satellites into orbit. And as mentioned, those satellites are essential to us. I think that technology transfers towards African countries need to continue to enhance access to space and the opportunities it holds. We all have something at stake. If we want to be effective in our fight against climate change, on the continent, we must be able to access Earth observation capabilities. This will enable us to understand the impacts on our forests, for example. how can we embark on sustainable and effective urban planning if we don't have access to the technology? How would it be possible to imagine effectively combating terrorists that are occupying large swaths of territory if we don't have ways of observing their actions and movements? This is why space cooperation is an imperative. Thus, I call for international solidarity to help the continent rise to the challenges related to space. It is crucial to me that we avoid making space a military battlefield. My country believes that outer space should serve noble and lofty goals that serve all. Cameroon is in favor of using outer space for peaceful purposes. Cameroon is in favor of using space to benefit current and future generations. Thank you for your very kind attention.
Nous allons partir. Le président Kagame est assis devant vous. On va le saluer.
Je ne vais plus m'asseoir là-bas.
On s'en va.
Personne.
Okay, thank you, President Bia, for those remarks, and for those that were listening and the headsets. Of course, we share the important principles of ensuring that we have a safe and sustainable and secure space environment. So it's glad the message is traveling around the world there. So we want to thank you very much for your time. I do now want to turn it to our third nation here. I want to turn to our Nigeria, to our Nigerian Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Minister Ibrahim. If you could join us up on stage. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame and his team, the NASA Administrator, His Excellency Bill Nelson and his family here, the President of Cameroon, His Excellency Paul Biya, other government officials here present, industry players here present, ladies and gentlemen of the press, good morning to all of you. It gives me a great pleasure to stand before you on behalf of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, representing also my principal, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, for the signing of today's accord, which is very important to us in so many areas. Particularly, Nigeria has so many initiatives leveraging on satellite, among others, when it comes to security, agriculture, the fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, robotics, and many more. Furthermore, we know that NASA, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, is the leading institution in the world. And any effort to work together will support our country significantly in attaining our vision and also our objectives. As we all know that Nigeria is a country with a population of around 220 million people today, and the sixth most populous country in the world, and very close to the fifth, that is Pakistan. So we have so many institutions working either on the sensor remoting or communication satellite, as the case may be. As the minister in charge of communications and digital economy, we are pleased to be invited to attend this US-Africa Leaders Summit taking place here in Washington, D.C. And we strongly believe that our institutions, like the Nigerian Communications Commission, Nigerian Communications Satellite, National Research and Space Agency, and many more, have a role to play when it comes to the implementation of this accord. I'm here also with some of the leading institutions of government that has a role to play when it comes to the implementation of this accord. I want to use the opportunity to extend the goodwill of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, most importantly, President Muhammadu Buhari, to all of you. And I do hope that this accord is going to bring a win-win situation for all of us. For example, we have NASDA, which is a government institution that has up to 5 satellites today. Secondly, they are into research and development, how to partake in research and development to improve the quality of life of our citizens, in addition to building capacity of our citizens. So we do hope that this accord is going to bring so many benefits, not only to Nigeria as a country, but Africa as a continent with 54 countries. We are blessed to have 2 presidents from Africa, the president of the Republic of Rwanda here, and also that of Cameroon. So by implication, Africa is effectively represented in the event. Once again, thank you all for listening.
Okay, there's some great remarks. It's very well versed, and we really appreciate all the effort that everyone going. Without further ado, a name that has been mentioned many times because he's had such an excellent week and an excellent year, Administrator of NASA, Bill Nelson.
Good morning, partners. Good morning, space partners. Space is the place. You all recognize and have already stated what is so important in our partnership in space. Mae Jemison and I have had the privilege of seeing our Earth from the window of the space shuttle, and it is this beautiful creation suspended in the middle of nothing. And you look at the rim of the Earth and you see a thin little film, and it's our atmosphere, and it's what sustains our whole life. Mae and I could look and we could see areas where we were messing it up. We could see the color contrast over the upper Amazon in Brazil, where they were cutting down the forest, and we could see the result of that. at the mouth of the Amazon, for the waters of the Atlantic were discolored with all of that silt, that additional silt that was coming down, because upriver there were no trees, there were no roots in order to hold the topsoil. We saw that, and in my case, it was very early in the space program, in the space shuttle program 37 years ago, going over Madagascar. Same thing. They had cut down all of the vegetation, the trees, and there were no roots to hold the topsoil. When the rains came, the waters took away the topsoil, and at the mouths of the rivers, you could see in the bright blue waters of the Indian Ocean being discolored for miles and miles. And so from space, we have learned a lot about our planet. And that's what we are partnering with you as we work together as partners to help better our lives. It's already been mentioned here, communication. Look at all the hundreds and thousands of communication satellites that are being put up now that will allow 5G communication in the remotest parts of the earth. That is a reality that is happening right now. We're very blessed to have one of the top members of the State Department here, Monica Medina, the Assistant Secretary of State, which has been so critical working with each of your governments. And by the way, thank you for the rule of law in your governments, because it's the rule of law that often sets apart a nation that otherwise is in total chaos from one that is prospering. And your nations have prospered. And the remarks have also indicated how our shared partnership is helping with regard to making people's lives on the earth better. So, for example, NASA coordinates with USAID to try to assist those that are the least fortunate because of no fault of their own. It may be a natural disaster. It may be a storm. It may be a drought. It may be forest fires. The assets that we have on orbit right now give us the information that you can inform that farmer that he should or should not plant that crop on that land because of the moisture content of the soil. We can tell that. We can identify even deposits of water underneath the surface of the earth to tap those well springs as if in ancient times Moses struck the rock and water gushed forward. We can provide the information of an incoming storm that is so critical, particularly to our coastal areas. These are not future items. These are present items for us to be able to share with you, our partners. And so the data is there. NASA has it. Over the course of the next decade, we are putting up 5 major new great observatories. It will give us a 3D dimensional understanding of what is happening to our planet and to our climate. It will give us the precision that we need not only to operate day to day in our lives and to be more productive in our lives, but also to try to preserve what May and I saw out the window of the spacecraft. This creation that is so colorful and so beautiful, suspended in the nothingness of space. I think the most recent picture in my mind that comes my mind's eye is a picture that we distributed from the spacecraft Artemis 1, the Orion spacecraft, as it rounded the most distant part of a human-rated spacecraft ever, 40,000 miles on the opposite side of the moon, 270,000 miles from Earth. And in that picture, taken a selfie by the spacecraft on the tip of the array, the solar array. You could see the spacecraft in the foreground, and then you could see the moon, and then 270,000 miles away, you could see our home, the colorful blue ball. And so that's what we want to share in our partnership. Today, we are expanding a partnership. We are having 2 more signatories of Rwanda and Nigeria will sign the Artemis Accords. The Artemis Accords are a common sense statement of principles of what we should do peacefully in space. You've heard 2 of our speakers already talk about that space should be used for peaceful purposes. It should. And so the Artemis Accords are a manifestation, a setting down of principles of peaceful use of space, of an intention to help each other out, of standardization of instruments so that we could come to the aid of each other if in distress. That's the Artemis Accords. And I'm so proud of Rwanda and Nigeria that they will be the 22nd and 23rd signatories of the Artemis Accords and the first 2 of the African nations to sign. The opportunity of space is open to all nations. The Artemis Accords are a blueprint for a safe, sustainable, and transparent openness, truthfulness that will define the 21st century in space. NASA, the United States, and our international partners hope more nations will join us and sign the Artemis Accords. And I want to close with a very major part of American history. We had a young president 60 years ago, President John F. Kennedy, who recognized that to do great things was to not only inspire a portion of the world, but was to inspire all the world. He went to Rice University, had a stadium full of people. And President Kennedy looked out over that audience of thousands. Right after John Glenn had flown as the first orbit, and the Soviet Union had already flown 2 cosmonauts in orbit. And he didn't know that it was going to work, but he said by the end of the decade, we're going to go to the moon and return safely. And the way he characterized it was this, and it should resonate in the hearts of every one of us. He said, we go to the moon and we do other things, not because it is easy, but because it's hard. Space is hard, but space is the means by which we can come together as peoples, as terrestrials of the planet Earth. Thank you for your partnership. Now,
Yeah, thank you, Administrator Nelson. Beautiful speech, as always, here. So now, as alluded to, we would appreciate if Assistant Secretary Medina, CEO Ngabo, and Minister Ibrahim could join us for the signing of the Artemis Accords. I think we're going to do that right over there.
All right, wasn't that wonderful? Let's have another round of applause. It's so exciting. Thank you, Chirag. Thank you to the Space Council for inviting me to be part of this ceremony today. Thank you, President Kagame. I'm not sure if he's still here. He left. Oh, so sorry. Minister Ibrahim, Chief Executive Officer Ngabo, Administrator Nelson, our dear friend and great partner in all this wonderful work to bring more partners to our wonderful Artemis program. Distinguished colleagues and guests, it's wonderful to be here with all of you as we mark the first day of the African Leaders Summit. I can tell you at the State Department, we're very excited about this. We've been planning for months and months, and we are so proud and pleased that this was one of the very first events of the first day of our African Leaders Summit. We're here to talk about U.S.-Africa cooperation in space, but I want to start closer to home. In 2005, when Hurricane Katrina made landfall in New Orleans, we urgently needed, satellite imagery to understand the scale of the damage. The first images to arrive were not from a U.S. government satellite. They came from Nigeria Sat-1, which, as the name suggested, was Nigerian-owned, and they showed us the full extent of the disaster, the flooding in New Orleans, and all along the Louisiana coastline. If that doesn't tell us why we need partners in space, we in the U.S., I don't know what would. So as we enter this new era in space development, it's important to remember the benefits that space partnership can deliver to our citizens, and we are so glad that African nations will now be active participants and partners in our Artemis program as we explore and determine all the new uses of space. As we focus this week on further strengthening the 21st century U.S.-Africa partnership, space will now play a key role with implications for our scientific exploration, our environmental understanding of the Earth and all its systems, and our economic cooperation. For all those reasons and more, today is a celebration. We are so delighted to welcome Nigeria and Rwanda as the first two African nations to sign the Artemis Accords, but I certainly hope they will not be the last. helping us, as the President said earlier, to reach the moon again and to aim for the stars. The 23 Artemis Accord signatories represent a diverse set of nations with a wide range of space capabilities and interests. The Accords support our activities in NASA's Artemis program, which aims to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon, among many other objectives. Through the Artemis program, the United States is building the broadest and most diverse international human space effort in history. And so many have talked about this earlier today, but it can't be overemphasized. As we expand our cooperation and capabilities in outer space, we must do so responsibly. That's why the Artemis Accords focus on peaceful space cooperation and exploration. It's why Vice President Harris announced in April that the United States is committed not to conduct direct ascent anti-satellite missile tests. These tests jeopardize the long-term sustainability of outer space by damaging the space environment, and they endanger the use of space by all nations. We very much appreciate the strong support of the Africa Group in the United Nations at the General Assembly when we, the U.S., sponsored a resolution that underscores this peaceful commitment to to using space and to not using these type of satellite missile tests that would be so destructive. When we commit to safe, peaceful, and sustainable exploration and use of space, we can unlock its unlimited potential, its limitless potential. Today, you'll hear about our collective efforts in outer space and how they can help combat climate change and advance progress toward achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I have my pin on here somewhere. I wear it all the time, every day. You'll also hear more about space-based Earth observations technologies. We've heard about that already a little bit, which deepen our understanding of our home planet. For example, in the US, we use this to help us understand our fire-prone regions and how to contain damage and save lives and minimize economic losses. And just last month, Uganda and Zimbabwe launched their first Earth observation satellites, which will perform analyses of water quality, land use cover, and soil fertility, as the administrator so perfectly described the importance of these observations from space. And we look forward to partnering with African nations on future applications for space-based Earth observations. This technology is key to providing what the Secretary General of the United Nations has called for by 2025, which is early warning systems for all. That way we can understand the impacts of climate change on us today and as we go forward and communicate that to all the nations that are impacted. Everyone must have early warning systems for their ability to deal with the climate challenge. And finally, of course, space cooperation has huge economic potential as well. And last year, the Space Foundation put a number on it. They valued the space economy at already $469 billion, most of which was generated by the commercial sector. The rapid expansion of the commercial space industry has created new opportunities for economic growth, public-private partnerships, and advancing space science. It seems like hardly a week goes by without some new launch, some new incredible landmark to be achieved. And I know that African countries will be major contributors to these efforts in the years ahead. So today, while we recognize our two new partners in the Artemis Accords, and we welcome them, we really hope that they will help us bring more African nations here to the signing table, and we will welcome even more countries to join us in this effort to develop a safe, peaceful, and sustainable outer space. Because at their core, these efforts in outer space serve to improve our lives here on Earth, in the United States, on the African continent, and all over the world. So I will end with my favorite African or Swahili saying, "Tuko pamoja." I use it all the time in my speeches because it means so much in all the efforts that we work on together on environmental cooperation and now in space. We are partners, we are together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary Medina, for such wonderful remarks and a great quote that we'll have to use over and over again through the course of this summit here. Thank you to all of our distinguished speakers for speaking on this first panel session here this morning. Again, welcome Rwanda, welcome Nigeria to the family of Artemis Accords. And last but not least, back to State Department for a second. We so appreciate State Department and, of course, all of our foreign ministries from all the nations around the world. You guys are such great ambassadors on Earth, and it's so amazing that you also get to be ambassadors of space as well. So thank you guys very much. We will now pause for a short moment as we transition to the panel discussion and as our press colleagues depart. So please stand by and we'll reset and begin the show here shortly. Thank you.